Hello and welcome. We have been having a few slight technical issues, but hopefully they have been at least loosely resolved in some way. It is, of course, Worldbuilding Wednesday, so we are going to build some worlds. It would be similar to our work stream, except with more world building instead of whatever happened on our work stream. So, I'm not exactly sure what we'll work on today. I assume we'll work on more paragraphs of lore and the like, stuff like that. I was considering, well, our original plan was to work on the map, which we've worked on last time. Oh, it's not open. Nah. Problem solved. There we are. The map we worked on last time, which was on yesterday on our work stream. But with it prepared enough, at least, we're going to work on focused world building to a degree. I say focused, unfocused, rambling world building. But that's just how it goes. So the plan, at least what I thought of, maybe, was maybe we'll cover some trade talk. Trade talk. Economics. That kind of thing. Which, I mean, there's lots of world building to be done there. And I mean, hear me out. Yes, it sounds not ideal. Nobody wants to hear, let's talk about space economics, but, it can be important to world building. Assuming I can even find where my sheet is. And where I saved it all. Here we go. Just because I want to give it a read. I probably should have done it not here, but This is World Building Wednesday, so it's something theoretically we should talk about. It is world building. To a degree. I mean, it is world building, but let's see whether I can't find the items chart. Yep, here it is. So, of course, in Galactic Requiem, there's a lot of trade between star systems and on individual planets and within star systems and everywhere. So, what I've been contemplating, other than, of course, working on vehicle stats and statting things and all of that, which we talked about yesterday, which is businesses. So I like, as I think I've described, making random generators. I say making random generators, it's also more so making charts for random generators that can then be rolled and used to sort of randomly generate things. One of the things I've not really got one for that's good is a random business generator, if you will. A generator that'll tell you what a business is. We have some, don't get me wrong, we have a few. They're just not the best. They're not custom, and they're not the best. And I kind of want to acquire and or make one. You probably make one because, you know, custom setting and all that. But yeah, a little random generator so I can randomly generate business types. Because, I mean, here on this map, for instance, we have light commercial. We know that means 1 or 2 story buildings of commercial shopping, probably variety. But what kind of shops are they? That we don't have. This image does not describe that. It just simply tells me light commercial. Light because of the image type and commercial because of the blue. So, you know, actually specifying them could be a useful thing. And so that's just one of the many things that I need to, at some point, update and work on. I also have to make an encounter soon. Started work on several encounters and all that for my non-solo tabletop RPG stuff. Anyway, world building, building worlds. I mean, my apologies for the fact that World Building Wednesday is often just big sheet over to my right. Because, you know, a lot of world building is a lot of writing. One thing, I know, random tangent, my apologies. So, one thing I face problem-wise with this, it's not a problem with map tools, like any program that's a virtual tabletop will have this problem, honestly. It is, so, this map here is obviously a square grid map. Every grid is a square. And also the map is on a scale of 5 feet to 1 square. Now, easily enough, one can say 50 feet to a square by just timesing by 10, which is what we do. We don't bother to update the map scaling on that. I just move the decimal point personally in my mind. So, the problem we face is the overworld map is a hexagon. And I mean, annoyingly, the larger, well, I can probably bring it up for you to see. This is either the right one or the wrong one. This is the wrong one. Here we are. As you can see, for mapping, there's a world map with hexagons in this orientation. Then every submap there's a fourth, but this isn't the most accurate version of it. But basically, you see, this one's set, I've roughly scaled it so 1 is 1. It's a bit off, but it's close enough that it's not a problem, basically. But you see, this hexagon is flat on the top, this hexagon is pointy on the top. And then this one is pointy on the top, and this one's flat on the top. Etc., and the measurement's 1. So for air combat, I use these just because it's easier to scale for air combat with these. Because, of course, actually, this isn't entirely accurate, I'll be honest. Usually for air combat, we use, if I recall correctly, this, like I said, this map is a bit out of date. It's not laid out properly. But we use this one, specifically because this one is 1 square is a kilometer. I say square, 1 hexagon is a kilometer. And this big hexagon would be 10 kilometers, which works well for air combat scale. It also works well for mass combat scale, as does every other scale, but it works very well for personal air combat scale, for modern starfighters and jets. Because of their speed, 1 kilometer squares works perfectly. Of course, for older ships, aircraft of tech level, say, 8, which, if I recall correctly, is like World War II era, we use the next, there would be one more, and it would be 100-meter subhexes. Every main hex is 1 kilometer. And that works better for the speed of World War II era fighters and aircraft. So, there's like map scaling. But, I mean, you can just copy and paste, but then you have to do additional math, and having different scales on the same map can be annoying, is basically my statement. I'm trying to fix that. I mean, it's not really a problem. I can always just have a player on a different map, and I can always just swap over to it on their turn. It's not like it's difficult or anything. It's actually rather simple. But, Anyway. That's just something that's been bugging me recently. Random tangent. Okay. So, let's see. As I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of statting recently. We're talking about a lot of stuff we talked about yesterday. But after my rambling yesterday about pricing of starships, being inaccurate with ground vehicles and all that, I tried to combine the systems. I say combine, I sort of retested building a starship using the vehicle construction system. Of course, it's not possible to build a vehicle using the starship construction system. That's just actively not possible. Because the starship system is specifically designed to build starships, basically. It doesn't have any vehicle parts. It has starship parts, but no parts that are necessarily, like, there's no rules for wheels or things like that, basically. But the vehicle construction rules technically can build starships. So I tried building a starship using the vehicle rules. And, I mean, you can build a starship using the vehicle rules, but the pricing is just wrong. I tried it, basically, I tried building it not for building's sake. Building's sake, the stats would be the same, like the stats wouldn't change. But the pricing associated to those stats is basically what was calculated out. And it didn't work. It worked for one of them. It worked for a small-scale civilian vessel if we multiplied by 5. If we multiplied the end cost by 5, it worked. The minute we tried to convert a frigate The minute we tried to convert a frigate stats to pricing, it didn't work. Before even times 5, it didn't work. And then after we times by 5, it just got worse. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was accurate for what would be logical. It wasn't like it didn't work. It didn't work for Galactic Requiem. Should a space frigate about 250 meters long be valued at 1 billion credits or more? Yes. Yes, it probably should be. But it's not in Galactic Requiem. Therefore, it was wrong. But, like, you get my point? Like, it's not a bad system. You theoretically could build a starship in the vehicle building system. It's just we couldn't price it properly. It doesn't price properly for Galactic Requiem. It prices properly for logic, just not for Galactic Requiem. So, yeah. It doesn't work out. And it's not so simple as find a solution that works. The problem would be every vessel would be off in its own way. Due to the way the vehicle construction works, every single vessel built would be off in its own way. And so it's just not feasible. So we just have to live with things being the way they are. I mean, it's not bad, it's not wrong, it's technically accurate. Anyway. It just feels weird, you know? A modern jet costing $500,000 just feels weird, you know? Costing as much as a tank or less than a tank feels weird. But when you have, like, production capabilities of advanced material sciences and so forth, it half makes sense until you realize that the cost of tanks hasn't changed. But then you could also just say that, like, demand for air vehicles is significantly less due to the cheap pricing and availability of starships and better vehicles. Like, why would you ever buy, say, a helicopter when you can buy a hover car? You know? So the pricing's not, like, entirely wrong, but it just feels weird. Anyway, enough of that tangent. Over to our goods. Let me check something I'm curious about. I'm looking at the trade chart, seeing what categories there are, because there's a category I'm wondering if there is. Which is, of course, oil. And I'm wondering what category that would fall under. Hmm. Where do we find... Ooh. I have to look something else up. My apologies. Okay, let's see. Okay, no, that's accurate. Next step, look for what we're looking for. So many trade goods, honestly, so many trade goods. A lot of it is just flavor taken from other stuff, but you know. I mean, technically, in game, they have uses and values and all that. Yes, don't get me wrong. But in a sense of a lot of it could be waved away, if you will. Like, I'll give you an example. Yes, the price of wood and the price of metal differ, and they differ per world. These rules are really for, and the differences are really, really for players who do trade. The majority of players who don't want to run in a trading campaign would just categorize these as construction materials or production materials or parts, basically, is what we just consider them. But for players who care about like the economic aspects of it and want to run an economic campaign, yeah, the difference between whether you're trading in wood or metal can make a difference because the prices will differ based on location and as well production, but it's not something that necessarily always comes up, is my point. Hello. Hello, Max, and thank you for the raid. Let me see if I can't do something fancy. I've never done any. Oh, shit. I've messed things up. My apologies. Let's see whether I can't fix that. um, I've never done this stuff before. And thank you very, very much for the raid. I appreciate it greatly. We're just talking about, well, trade goods. Not the most interesting of things to talk about, you know? But we're talking about galactic trade. Let me see if I can't do something fancy here. I have no clue how any of this works. Let's see. Yep, I have no clue what I'm doing. Um, but yeah, we're just talking about galactic trade. But like, as you may know, when you're producing robots in Galactic Requiem, you basically just buy mechanical and electronic parts. You don't care too much what metals you're buying, but people in a more trade-focused campaign, they care whether they're bringing gold or iron or processed ores or unprocessed ores or etc. from location to location. And the price of these goods can differ based on economic values and all that. And thus we have different different items listed on the trade chart. A lot of different items. But what we're looking for right now is chemicals. Nope. Hmm? Oh, maybe it is listed under different name. So basically, all the trade goods we have are mostly used for greater galactic economics for players who are interested in galactic trade as opposed to necessarily used in normal gameplay, if you will. Let's see here. I'm looking for a specific trade good, but I don't remember what it's listed under. Mm-hmm. Oh, there we are. The word we're looking for is petrochemical, which we found by typing in chemical. I assumed it would either be under oil or chemical, so. But yes, the correct terminology and terminology used in the book, which is why I was having a bit of a hard time finding it, is petrochemical. Yes. Mostly because, Nutroplastic? Never heard of it. Not sure why one would eat plastic. Especially when our good sponsor, Crunchy Bits, provides cheap meals. I say cheap, but high quality meals for cheap. Do you know how much it costs to have a meal of Crunchy Bits? Exceptionally cheap. Here we are. Nope, wrong book. Accidentally clicked the wrong one. Here we go. You can get an entire Crunchy Bits meal for 1 credit. 1 galactic standard credit. Even with the lowest pay in some places of 5 credits an hour, you can have Crunchy Bits real easily. Those, of course, are not flavored Crunchy Bits. Flavored Crunchy Bits will cost a bit more. Flavored Crunchy Bits cost 3 credits. And water, enough water for meals, 1 credit. Flavored water is 2 credits. Flavored water is one of the, it's not produced by Crunchy Bits, but it's one of the most common drinks for Terran kind and many species that rely on water throughout the galaxy. Because sometimes you want a little flavor in your water. There's so many brands and so forth out there. I mean, at that point, you might as well spend money on actual milk as opposed to milk flavored water. I mean, I suppose you're not wrong. They do sell basically every flavor, so I mean, it is definitely an option. How much would milk be? Let's check. Relatively cheap, you're looking at probably 3 credits. Yeah, probably 3 credits. A more fancier beverage, I say fancy, but like a standard beverage, like what you would consider for Elysians or humans, as you say, a soda, if you will, or some of the more beverage like that is like 5 credits. But we're not talking like one. We're talking, well, it's a meal's drink, you know? Which is why flavored water is far more economic. As is normal water, which is only 1 credit. But given the way the galaxy works, usually, like, usually, crunchy bits and water are well within the reach of anyone. I mean, a spicy ramen cup, like 4 credits also. Honestly, more like 3. Like, it probably costs the same as flavored crunchy bits. If it's fancier variety, maybe 4 credits. But like stuff like that's relatively cheap. Oh, I mean, well, buying at a store. Let's be more accurate here. Vending machines themselves are basically often somewhat scams, aren't they? Vending machines often charge a lot more than the actual value of the thing, at least from what I've seen. Because a frozen meal will run you 5 Galactic Standard credits, same as a standard beverage to go with that meal. Well, a hearty frozen meal will cost you 10 Galactic Standard credits. Now, if you go to a restaurant or something, and you want something actually fresh, or you want to make something yourself fresh, you're looking at about 15 Galactic Standard credits. An actual restaurant meal will probably cost you 20 credits or so. A high quality meal costs you 40 credits. Of course, above that, we're just getting into people who spend money on fancier things. I mean, there are burger places, not on, I mean, probably on my world, but I don't. I mean, let's be honest. I have only the fanciest meals. You know, other when I'm not having a meal with conscripts. That's when I just have standard imperial rations. But as an imperial lord, I of course have only the fanciest meals gathered from across the empire. Not only from across the world, but across the empire. Thousands of star systems. Actually, more than thousands of star systems, but that's not too important. My point being, I probably spend more on meals than, well, most people. But that's just standard for being an imperial lord, isn't it? Only the finest goods and products. But yes, I mean, I am not really the best to compare with your average galactic standard citizen. Imperial lords are rulers of, at minimum, a star system, you know? And we are very big on our presentation, if you will. It is all about status. And so, of course, one must have the finest things imported from, wherever the finest things are produced. But that's just, you know, cultural for the way imperial lords are supposed to conduct themselves. But no, I don't have any restaurants in any of my personal locations, like my palace or my ship and so forth. We, of course, have a mess hall on my ship. And, of course, in the palace, we have a mess hall and a kitchen. Favorite? That's a bit more complex. Now, admittedly, I prefer standard Imperial rations. Having been a conscript myself, standard Imperial rations are genuinely my favorite. But I must admit, when not having standard Imperial rations, I am quite a fan of gumbo. We, of course, have the seasonings, spices, all of that imported from across the Empire. Handmade by only the finest trained conscript chef. And or full-time chef. It really depends on whether we're away or not. When we're away, I'll have a conscript chef do it. When we're at palace and so forth, we have a resident chef. They are paid well. I mean, the term conscript and so forth is very misleading in the Empire. As I'm sure I've said before, every Imperial conscript gets paid 400,000 plus, a little bit more than 400,000, Galactic Standard credits for 2 years of service. Yes, the service is mandatory, but all the benefits and so forth. And then, of course, Imperial government officials that are not conscripted and or government workers that are not conscripted gain additional benefits. Things such as increased status in the Empire, increased holdings, increased lots of stuff, honestly. I mean, I'd have to bring up a sheet if you want the exact information about what officially signing in with the Empire as more than just a conscript grants. But it grants a lot. Where is it? Look, I love going off on tangents. Here we are, signing on with the Empire. They're paid about the same as a conscript, technically speaking. Except that, well, they are technically hired indefinitely. Technically, we do have this process of after every 10 years, they theoretically could leave, debatably. But not only do they get all the benefits of normal conscript stuff, they'll be improved at the rank of 04 to a Class 2 citizen. And at rank 08, they will be given the status of a Class 1 citizen. At rank 02, the individual gains benefits and ties within the government. And as they gain rank, their status and ties improve. Starting with a +1 at rank E8, and every 2 rank increases, the individual's social status increases. All the way up to social status 19, which has its own benefits in the Empire. But other than like gumbo, I suppose I do enjoy crepes for dessert or for breakfast. Nothing beats crepes. Yes, gumbo. I quite enjoy gumbo. But yes, we have all that imported from across the galaxy. I've probably shown this before. Let's pop over to the galaxy map so I can point some things out distance-wise. Here we are. So it's no secret that I am over here. Right in this little territory, this little corner of Imperial territory, right next to neutral space. Whenever we import goods, we do import them from the wider empire at large. Of course, there are fees for transit of goods and so forth, and it's not viable, per se, to bring goods in from very far away, but it doesn't stop us. I mean, the shipping fees for such things are vast on a galactic scale. Indeed. As in them being food or them producing food? Because the answers are different for both. I personally, I mean, well, it differs. So, well, not personally. There are cultures out there that do. And I'd say it really depends on whether they produce good food. They're not a singular, I mean, they are a singular nation, but there's so many different insectoid cultures within their territories that it really depends. But overall, culturally within the United Insectoid Hives, I'd say they don't make good food. I mean, they've had some good vegetable-based foods that they produce I'm talking on a major scale. Of course, minor cultures within their territories differ greatly and probably produce some good things. They do trade with the outside nations and so forth. But history-wise, the United Insectoid Hives have been known to grow in population vastly. And when they do, they actually have significant food shortages. And then they go a bit feral. And they will attack and strip other planets of all resources and all biological material that can be used as food. So one could say that it's probably not the best food that they produce. I mean, they eat a lot of raw food. But insectoids as food? I mean, to a degree. Oh, there's been many major wars between the insectoids and the wider galaxy. Many, many wars. They don't really successfully push into Imperial territory. Up here, they try when they go into their ravenous state. But a majority of their conflict has been with the Council to their south and their allies. Not their allies, the nations to the Galactic East and Galactic West of them. Which leads to many political disagreements and agreements in regards to the treatment of insectoids and so forth. For instance, it's one of the reasons that there has been no actual galactic-wide agreement on, well, rules of war. Because the insectoids, when they go into their state every so often, it's not like it's a yearly thing or anything, it's every many years, they're quite destructive. So the galaxy uses pretty much any means to destroy them, things that could be considered war crimes often, which leads to very difficult agreements of what is and isn't considered a law of war in the wider galaxy. The insectoids have a wide variety of bug species. There are non-hive mind and hive mind variants and so forth, but no, there's no individual bug type within the hives. They have things that are basically what you would consider your Elysian ants. Same size, but hive mind sentient, well, connected to a hive mind that is sentient. Things you would consider your average size bugs, but connected to a hive mind and they're sentient. All the way to giant bug monstrosities the size of a building, sentient themselves, or hive-minded, marching on and ripping to shreds anything in their territory. And they're all sentient species that, with technological advancement, usually it's biotech, but they have ranged weapons. When they go ravenous, often they'll forget a lot of these things because they won't focus on their production, but like, we're talking like starships. They have starships, they have ranged weaponry, they have artillery, they have counters to mechs. Oh, we do. We do hit the planets with railguns often. Well, when we're in a state of war with them. When they aren't in their ravenous state, they do partake in galactic affairs in a reasonable manner. However, there are certain worlds within the insectoid hives that it's not recommended you go to. Basically, they have worlds in which outsiders go to. There are worlds in the insectoid hives in which outsiders should not go to because they will not consider you a creature with rights, basically. They will view you as simply biomaterial, basically. So, there are worlds you probably shouldn't go to in the United Insectoid Hives. But there are worlds you can visit. And they do trade with wider galaxy, and there are places as such, like, you can find insectoids out in the wider galaxy. But yes, a lot of wars do occur with them when they get into that state every so often. And orbital bombardment is often what is resulted to, because tactically fighting on a bug world is it's a nightmare. It's an active nightmare. Especially when you consider the fact that they are technologically advanced, and they will counter you. Flying bugs with weapons that fire, bug artillery, and the fact that, congrats, instead of a nanite swarm you're up against, it's a swarm of sentient ants, and they've swarmed your position. What are you going to do? Shoot every individual ant with a gun? You need flamethrowers, you need chemical sprayers, you need orbital bombardment, you need these things when fighting them. It's it's not the best faction to fight against. Indeed, I mean, they are best for fighting that kind of thing. As is plasma throwers, electro throwers, all that kind of stuff is best for engaging against certain enemies. Of course, electro throwers, while useful against that, are often used against nanites as are flamethrowers. However, one of the few conventions that has been agreed upon but usually sometimes ignored is nanite weaponry has been not restricted but discouraged. The use of nanite weaponry has been discouraged. Not only are nanites exceptionally expensive, but militaries that field them usually find themselves in a no-holds-barred engagement. It's using nanite weaponry is usually on par with. So you think that this engagement is going to involve tactical nukes? Like, if one faction uses nanite weapons, the other faction will either use nanite weapons or tactical nukes, or basically, it opens the door for that kind of thing. And it happens. It happens. Usually, it's usually there's an agreement that if such things occur, it's usually limited per world or per system if the system's being fought over. Usually, if one faction does it to another faction's world in their territory, there's usually a counter use by the other faction on one of the other faction's worlds. How effective on nerve agents? It depends. On bugs, not very. They can be, but the bugs often adapt. Against forces, it depends on their equipment loadouts, and it depends on the nerve agents. Usually nerve agents will use nanites with a lesser categorization. They'll use light destructive nanites, technically. Usually. And it is considered light use of nanites, so usually the response is heavy. The reason nerve agents are used with nanites is because it really depends on your engagement and your engagement area. If you're on a world in which equipment is not environmentally sealed, nerve agent use is more common, with no nanites involved. If you're in a combat area in which full combat armor is used, combat armor usually having its own built-in life support, nerve agent is used in combination with nanite deconstructors. Light nanite deconstructors, not the heavy variant, because those are usually a bit more restricted in their use. But basically, they'll deteriorate the equipment that a person wears. They'll deconstruct equipment, not in any significantly fast manner, but they'll degrade your equipment, which will break seals and so forth, which then nerve agents can get to, which is why they're often combined with nanite light variant deconstructors in that kind of combat situation. But they can be super effective. They're not effective in wide-scale anti-bug warfare, though, because bugs will adapt. Nukes work, yes, but the problem is, as stated, the bugs are sentient and technologically advanced. they have nukes. That's the problem. They also have nukes. And they have things more powerful than nukes. Let me put it this way. Nuclear weapons, while they are banned to a degree, not entirely, they are used, tactically speaking. A starship can put out the output of several nukes per second. I say a starship, I mean a capital class vessel. A battleship can put out several nukes per second worth of conventional fire. A starship, a battleship class vessel, can usually take 10 hits. 10 direct hits from a nuke. Now don't get me wrong. It will degrade every single hit. That starship's not going to be happy for 10 nuclear hits. But it will survive 10 hits. It will be degraded every single hit, but it will survive 10 hits. And let me start with one question real fast. United Insectoid Hives, there are multiple insectoid factions. There are some in the Galactic Council proper. There are many out in the frontier, and there's lots in neutral territories and so forth. But every square, every white square here, these little white squares, are 150 light years. They're sectors. There are about 1,000, also give or take, star systems in every white square. They have about 3 white squares. So one could say they have about 1,000 to 1,500 times 3. So 3,000 or so star systems just for the United Insectoid Hives. And that's, like I said, not all the insectoids. Technically, the Raktas are also an insectoid faction. As I said, there's also ones within the Galactic Council, ones within neutral space. These are just the major nation ones. So a lot more than that, but 3,000 star systems, but not 6,000 planets. Every star system, on average, has 10 to 20 objects in it. They also have Dyson swarms. The insectoids do have a few what could be classified as biological Dyson swarms. So we're talking more, vastly more than 6,000 planets worth when you consider Dyson swarms. But even if we don't count the Dyson swarms, you're looking at over 30,000 worlds. Not even counting the Dyson swarms. As for relativistic kill vehicles and or relativistic kill missiles, those are a thing. Now, the problem with relativistic kill missiles in Galactic Requiem is there are very easy there's anti-FTL, yes, but anti-light speed weapons. We actually have rules in game for hitting things at percentages of light speed. Because I love writing rule systems to cover everything. But yes, there are rules for hitting things at light speed, high percentage light speed. But there's actually counters. So many planets, basically any system and planet you'll find, will have a defense against such things. Basically what you do is you have a high energy field, sort of like a shield. You can use an energy shield, but usually they'll use electromagnetics and a spray of what is the most lowest tech possible things, ball bearings. You fill an area with ball bearings. The relativistic kill missile hits the ball bearings, hits a metal sheet, basically. Then more ball bearings, then another sheet, then more ball bearings, then another sheet. And then eventually you just hit energy fields, magnetics, and energy shields, and eventually, basically, the relativistic kill missile kills itself against these anti-light speed, high percentage light speed things, because the energy it's going, hitting a ball bearing, will destroy the vehicle in itself. Luckily, they are contained. The bugs don't usually make it too far. Luckily, the Council and the Empire and most other nations around them, as long as you don't live in the immediate vicinity of the bug territories, usually it's fine. But yes, with the prevalence of Dyson swarms, most major nations, I say it's partially true. The amount of effort to destroy major nations, who usually have multiple Dyson swarms, is not something we've seen in the modern era. The last time, not the only time, but the last time we saw the defeat of nations with Dyson swarms, like the actual defeat militarily, and not economically or socially or diplomatically, was during the First Galactic War. During the First Galactic War, the Empire, the faction that I'm a part of, I don't, of course, run the Empire, I'm simply a lord within the Empire, but we were able to destroy several major nations, thus changing the shape of the galaxy. For instance, over here, where's my pointer? There we are. This territory, as you can see, a weird cutout here of Imperial territory. This territory used to be factions and nations. Same with this territory. And some more up a little bit higher, technically speaking. But there were nations up there that were destroyed and taken over by the Empire during the First Galactic War. One could say, while the Empire did sort of give up on the First Galactic War, we didn't surrender or nothing, but just kind of stopped, got stalled in some places, and stopped in other places. It was an Imperial victory. Not an overwhelming victory, but it was a victory. But there are many anti-planet weapons, like NyQuil Dyson beams, and Nova bombs and so forth. Anti-system weapons like that. Nova bomb's an anti-system weapon usually. Orbital bombardment till the planet cracks. All sorts of stuff like that. Many super weapons, but taking out worlds, it's far easier than defeating nations. Once more, Dyson swarms. The amount of population and resources that come from a Dyson swarm, which usually, if you have a Dyson swarm, you're star lifting. Star lifting, if you don't know, is the extraction of resources directly from a star. With Dyson swarms and star lifting, basically, a nation's core, its Dyson swarm, which is usually what they make their capitals, are basically have infinite resources and people. Not like technically infinite, you know, but if you know the scale of a Dyson swarm and the scale of a star, star lifting in Dyson swarms basically means you have infinite resources. We actually have a guide for that. Where'd I put my guide? Here we are. A base Dyson swarm. The very base Dyson swarm, not even heavily populated. Ten, whatever comes after quadrillion people. And that's for a Terran Dyson swarm. That's not a bug Dyson swarm. That's a Terran Dyson swarm. Bug populations are usually higher. So, by an order of magnitude or a few of those. So, just production output and all that is vast. And then there is, of course, other such things like, what is it? Just megastructures like that. Ring worlds, McKendree cylinders, O'Neill cylinders, all sorts of megastructures, orbital rings, space elevators, all that good stuff. But yeah, it does make managing things difficult. Luckily, in our system, Dyson swarms and large populations are limited by the fact that a nation cannot. Nations are discouraged from mass production of Dyson swarms. Not only would it take a long time, but they're discouraged from mass production of Dyson swarms because loyalty, basically. Having that higher population means having people with different views, different goals. And you can't control all these people if you have too many of them. So, you take severe penalties on a nation scale using the nation rules if you have significantly high populations. Usually the limit before you take penalties is you can have one Dyson swarm per sector. They don't have to be in the same place. So basically, like, if we look at the council here, they have all these sectors. There's not a Dyson swarm in every single sector. They personally cluster their Dyson swarms in their capital sector. But yes, there's a discouragement of the production of vast quantities of Dyson swarms. Yeah, there are hive-minded Dyson swarms for the insectoids. It is not the kind of place one necessarily wants to visit. So, of course, as an Imperial Lord and former Imperial conscript, I know no fear. But I would not want to go to a I would not want to go to a bug world, let alone a bug Dyson sphere. That would not be on my list of places to go, even encased in the highest grade Imperial powered armor. I would still not want to go to a bug world. And that's saying something, given the fact that the Empire is, of course, the most technologically advanced faction in the galaxy. Even then, You know, still not the place you want to go. Luckily, we do have robots and all that. Well, I mean, some of them are big. Like, not all the bugs are small. They go as big as, like I said, houses and starships and all that. But yeah, there are many small hallways and so forth. But luckily, I mean, even if I did go to a bug world, there's no reason to necessarily fear, assuming you have enough galactic standard credits. You could just upload your brain. We do live in a very what is it you all call it? Post-human society? Basically, mind uploads a thing. People swap their bodies into robots or other bodies or even bugs. So I mean, if you go there as a digital entity, I'm sure it's fine. I mean, the network architecture, it's complicated. Their virtual worlds can be bug-like and very hard to understand for Terrans being humans, but just a standard network architecture is the standard galactic standard network architecture. So as long as you're not going to some like virtual world of theirs, navigating their network is possible. I mean, culturally, it might be complex to understand what they're saying. Because of course, network architecture doesn't change what the content of their files and information is. They'll be readable to you, but it might not make sense, because cultural differences. So while you could check on a bug network, you probably won't understand what they mean when they're talking about caverns and like just cultural differences. Like, what does a bug complain about? We don't put big bugs into orbit, they put big bugs into orbit. I mean, that's not entirely true. There's certain nature reserves throughout the galaxy that do have insectoids and so forth. There's many different species though. There's reptilians, insectoids, plant-based creatures, rock-based creatures. I mean, the Seortan are literally rock-based creatures there. And we here, while some species are humanoid or terranoid, there are many species that are very much not. Like a lot of the Seortan, the rock creatures, yes, they are not in the shape of Terrans. They are shambling mounds of dirt and rock. Not in a offensive thing saying they're dirt, no, they're actively shambling mounds of dirt and rock. Of course, they are also terrible to fight. You land on a Seortan world. Congratulations. Did you land on the ground or a creature? Everybody thinks they're doing fine until a shambling mound of rocks just appears out of the ground, just obliterating an infantryman, just absolutely shredding an infantryman. You know, being a Terran in this galaxy, Galactic Standard Astronomical Catalog Galaxy 1, is it's relatively safe. Just don't join the space military. I mean, there's many Terran factions. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the Empire is technically a Terran faction. But yes, fighting other people is even a nightmare because nano swarms and other such things. Futuristic warfare is very deadly. And the majority of citizens cannot afford immortality. The majority of citizens, while they can upload their brain, do not have the money to back up their brain. They can upload it, but backing it up with a spare server-based thing where you get your memory stored every so often, significantly expensive. Millions of credits, if not billions, depending on the package plan you go for. So, immortality is expensive. Biological immortality, like not aging, expensive but less so. Full-on immortality, far more expensive. Hell, join the Imperial Army. We give biological immortality. Joining in the Imperial Army for your two-year conscription, we give life extension. Yes. That is one of the benefits. But yeah, like, there are many species, and so many are difficult to fight. For instance, as I mentioned before, the plant-based beings. Once more, congrats, you're on a jungle world. Your enemy are plant-based creatures. Is that a tree you see, or is it about to kill you? But of course, there are solutions. You know, orbital bombardment, mechs, starships, jets, tanks, defoliant. It's a slow process. Any galactic war is a slow process. Any war is a slow process, usually on the large scale. I mean, the first galactic war lasted several hundred years. Second one's been going on 11 years now. 12, maybe? It is New Year. And we don't see any end till the Second Galactic War. So, you know. And then, of course, there are, well, just countless species. Energy-based beings, aquatic beings, Terran subspecies. Subspecies is basically every other kind of creature. Lots of stuff. And then, of course, with genetic modification and all that, and bioengineering and biotechnology, there's pretty much nothing that isn't out there. Aliens in the computer? I mean, technically, aliens can mind upload, yeah. I mean, there are, of course, less advanced worlds out there with lower tech levels, but most spacefaring nations are tech level 16 at least, meaning they have access to the majority of these things. Most of these things are tech level like 12 to 14. Also robot factions, of course, like the robots of the Coalition and all that. Which is, I mean, not a nation you want to go up against as a digital entity. They're experts. Super AIs and all that exist, so you know, like you don't necessarily want to have a network connection when you're fighting the robots of the Coalition. Or a megacorp even at that. If you annoy a megacorp enough that they will unleash a AI on you, I mean, you're going to be having a bad time. But yeah, all that and more. Grey Tree Resource Extraction is a valued megacorporation and potential sponsor of our news episodes. We will not have Grey Tree Resource Extraction insulted here. Grey Tree provide many resources to the wider galaxy. Grey Tree is useful. They provide goods and resources that we all need. Ignore the large ecological disasters that Grey Tree resource extraction causes. Ignore those. They definitely didn't cause those. Grey Tree definitely was not involved in the ecological destruction of several star systems. Where is the thing? Here it is. Yeah, they are a top corporation. And any allegation of Grey Tree security forces being involved in any illegal activities such as suppression of local populace and the like are pure fiction. We are definitely not paid by Grey Tree. If only we were. We could probably get a Grey Tree sponsorship. I mean, OmniCorp will never go for us. We got point combat templates, though. But, I mean, Grey Tree's not a top 20 megacorp. I think they're in the top 200, but they're not a top 20, so they'll probably sponsor us. But my goal is to get OmniCorp. They produce the majority of galactic goods, you know. I mean, I say this, but you know, being an Imperial Lord, it's not like we need sponsors. Different faction. Same name. Same name. Yes. But they're OmniCorp because they produce everything. They are probably the top galactic company. Largest one. Basically a nation more so than a corporation, honestly. But yes, they provide all sorts of goods from the OAC-85 assault rifle used by the Galactic Council, which got them a bunch of money when they sealed that deal. Because the Council used to use the Council Nitida assault rifle, which was basically mainly used during the First Galactic War. But after the First Galactic War, they were convinced to swap weapons to the OAC-85, which is produced by Omnicorp, of course. And that deal, given the fact, like, if you look at this map, see the scale of all these other nations, and then the size of the council, equipping their entire council forces with those. I mean, it's not the entire nation. The council is a bunch of sub-nations working together. But basically, the deal basically gave Omnicorp so much money. I mean, this was several years back. But basically, like, it solidified Omnicorp's position as the top corporation. I mean, they produce more than just weapons, of course. They have entire food brands, vehicle brands. You can basically find an Omnicorp anything, which is why they're called Omnicorp. They make it all. I mean, I can answer here. It's not a problem. Define better. Like a 10 gauge? Anywhere, really. Probably, like, this. Let me be specific. Order online. I mean, what do you currently have in game? A 12 gauge? I mean, you can always get better ammo. The special thing of shotguns is their special ammo costs less than other guns. Also bleed and increased wound chance. But special ammo is significantly cheaper for shotguns. Let me type in your character's name. There we go. Just checking my documents. Yep, you're using a 12 gauge semi-automatic shotgun. Model 58SG. It's not a bad shotgun. Better than most. But you're probably going to want to upgrade to a 10 gauge shotgun if you want more damage, flat out. Otherwise, you're going to have to get special ammo. If you get a 10 gauge and special ammo, it's going to do a lot more, but you're probably going to want to increase the gauge, basically. That's not a good thing. You don't want the attention of an Imperial Lord on your character. That's a very bad thing, Max. The conscripts will be sent to drag your character away. Look, you don't want the Empire looking in your general direction. And distance won't save you. Unlike standard jump drives, there's lots of FTL drives. But unlike standard FTL drives, standard jump drives specifically, Imperial jump drives don't have a range limit. So distance won't save you. I hope you realize what you've done. I hope you realize what you've done. You have unfortunately, canonically, had me look at Mark Carver's sheet. That's not ideal. It's very not ideal. Look, you're lucky as an Imperial Lord. I have far greater matters to attend to. Like managing a 3-star systems, a war in a Dyson swarm, and a potential war in a 4th-star system while paying tithes to the Lord that I serve. If I didn't have all that on my plate, this could be terrible. I mean, luckily, well, see, his stat block, while it is not a thing in universe per se, we are broadcasting using a multidimensional broadcasting device, and it does have the slight ability to alter reality. Therefore, we have the means of looking at stat blocks. We can theoretically look anywhere in the galaxy. We don't. We limit our use of this multidimensional device because we don't want entities looking back at us. Eldritch monstrosities sometimes are drawn to such things. And despite being the ruler of 3-star systems and part of the most advanced faction in the galaxy, dealing with eldritch deities is not something that is simple. But yes, that you do, that you do. You do indeed know that dealing with eldritch monstrosities is dangerous. Yeah, it's even dangerous for Imperial Lords. We are, well, we may be technically immortal. That is not something I seek to ever test against an eldritch deity. Because I'm sure that immortality only goes so far when you're dealing with things that alter the fundamental underlying effects of reality. But yes, that's the reason we don't use the multidimensional broadcasting device to alter reality, lest we bring upon the gaze of worse entities. And while the Empire as a whole can handle such things, I'm not confident in my ability to handle such things in the time it takes a response force to arrive at my location. But yes. So that's My suggestion would be getting a 10 gauge and then getting specialty ammo, shotgun wise. Or a 23mm shotgun. But probably just a 10 gauge. Would get you what you're looking for, maybe? I mean, if you're very lucky, you could theoretically get an enhanced, improved damage 10 gauge with high quality rounds, which would basically get you something real good. Definitely doable. A high velocity coil shotgun is definitely doable. The the benefit, however, is mostly, well, it depends. It depends on the specific modifications. There's lots of different weapons modifications, ammo variants, and so forth with different modifiers and bonuses. Or, there's a form of shotgun called it's a shotgun, but it is a basically, it's called a flechette projector. It's like a shotgun, except it's all flechettes, and it's very rapid fire. It's not necessarily any better in general. It's better in certain situations, worse in others. But flechette weapons, laser weapons, plasma weapons, lots of options available. Yeah, I mean, you can craft anything. Well, not anything, of course, but yeah, you can craft any reasonable item. And our definition of reasonable is rather large, given the fact that this is a space society. Like, mind upload is a thing, so very much, of course, within reason is broad, given cybernetics, mind upload, magic casters, plasma weapons, laser weapons. I mean, FTL. But yes, the options are vast. You can even build a starship. Build a space empire. Start your own empire. Start your own corporation. I mean, that's what y'all sort of have done in the campaign. Y'all sort of have your own. Not nation. Corporation. You need to improve its stats, but you have a corporation. You don't have to improve its stats. I recommend it. Look what you've done. You've made me acknowledge your organization. No, no. Look, luckily, lore-wise, we are broadcasting to the entire wider galaxy, so unfortunately, anybody who watches Imperial broadcasts now knows. Not ideal, but you know. So, let's see. I mean, there's. I mean, there were things I was supposed to do, but that's not really a problem. Most I was just going to ramble. That's what we do. Let's see. We are, however, reaching our usual time, meaning it's time for me to make a coffee. Soon, at least. But yes, basically, in short, galactic trade is a thing. That's basically that was that. I mean, let's be honest. That was the short of my tangent. There's lots of items for galactic trade, but I do enjoy talking to you all, and I would like to thank you all for stopping by. I would like to thank you for the raid, Maxwell, and everybody should go check out Maxwell 0000 and thank you also for stopping by Tank Track. Tracks? There we are, yes. I am glad you all stopped by, and it was real fun talking to you all. Anyway, as per usual, I have been your host, Casimir Basilius, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.